thank you everyone for coming out. Welcome to our garden. My name is Dale. This is Carrie. Mary is over here. We'll all be able to help you out. She's pretty much grown up out here, so she spends a lot of time out here. She planted actually probably more food than I have. She planted every onion. She's way better than I am. So welcome to our garden. Today we're going to give you a tour. We're going to talk about how we did all this, why we did all this, and I'm just going to talk for a while. And if you have any questions, feel free, please, just to ask. So let's get started. I want to start by talking about where we started, and it was right over here. So this is one of our first original gardens right here. And we had another one right here that was on the ground too. And we started our garden with the idea that we just wanted to start by growing a few of the things that we were spending a lot of money on. So like spinach and kale, because I was reading a lot of books about health and about how beneficial those were for mental health and anxiety. And so we started with spinach and kale, and this was a great spot for that, but it ended up becoming a problem because once we got into the fall, this didn't get any sun. So that's the first point I want to mention is that when you're starting your garden, you got to really evaluate your location and how much sun it gets and how that sun is going to change because I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I did not understand how the sun worked before I started gardening. I didn't even think about it. I didn't care. I barely even knew what direction it. So I didn't really understand that this was going to be shaded part of the year. So that created a problem. So that's the first thing I want to mention is that was a mistake we made early on. So our first beds were with these, out of wood. We went to Lowe's and we started with the square foot gardening book, where basically you take a garden plot and divide it up into squares. I used to actually have the squares, but I gave up like a year because they kept breaking. And really, I use these lines, these PVC lines, as my squares, and I can visualize just based off the screws that we used for the lines. By the way, if you do want to do the lines for the square foot gardening method, an easy way to do it is just to drill screws along the bed and then wrap wire or like nylon twine around to make the line for it. Um, Let me talk a bit more about square foot gardening. If you're not familiar, does everyone know what that is, square foot gardening? Everyone? Okay, cool. So I'm not going to go into much detail. Um, so we started with that, and then basically we started moving this way to start getting sunlight. And as Carrie let me start going this way, because initially this is like I was allowed to do like this couple things, but I have a tendency to kind of go deep into something and then get like bored with it. So we didn't want that to happen with our yard. So luckily after like a year and a half, she let me kind of take over the rest of the yard. But so we eventually started working in more of these smart pots that you see around. We learned about these our second year. The first year I learned about them, I was super skeptical and I thought they would not work because this black cloth would get way too hot in the summer. Because the first year I spent a lot of time battling the heat and all my containers just died. So I'd given up on containers after the first year. I had pretty much said that would never work in Oklahoma at the northern person's game. And then I was going through the Master Gardener program. I was meeting I was going to a lot of gardening talks and just listening to, and one professor in particular talked a lot about these smart pots and about the science behind them and about how plants are able to get more air because in addition to just air coming in from the top, they're coming in from the side. And so I decided to try it, but I wanted to try a test. So I did one smart pot over here that was buried. You can see this one here. The cat is pointing out. And then I did this one next to it. And the plants that were in here did better than the plants that were in there. I did peppers, tomato. I did the same plants in both, and I did the exact same varieties that were bought at the same time as a control base. And they were noticeably different. So that was really when my eyes started to be open to them and I started experimenting with them. And then it kind of, now I wish I would have done these from the beginning because you can see my wooden raised beds are falling apart. Now, a lot of it is due to the fact that I've got wood chips all the way up to it, that makes it decompose faster. But I was fighting Bermuda. Let me talk about that for a minute because the first year we tried just the black weed cloth and then the wood chips on top of that. And by spring by summer we were getting hammered by Bermuda. That's all we were doing. Um, so the second year we switched to covering pretty much from here over was covered with cardboard and wood chips. We have very few Bermuda issues over there, but here is still where things pop up from time to time. So you can kind of see the difference there. One thing I'll mention on the cardboard is it's much better to get the really large pieces of cardboard than to try and stack together a bunch of small Amazon boxes because then when a wind gust comes up, you get really mad. And it's frustrating. So the large boxes, I got them at like the Harley Davidson store and more. I don't know if they still do it, but just try and think of a store that gets really big things that isn't a large corp. Like Lowe's has a process for their cardboard and they don't want to talk to you about it. So those smaller stores, it's easier to get that kind of stuff. Um, okay, so let's just start talking about what we have out here now, and I'll start kind of going through and giving a tour of everything we have. Does that sound all right? Cool. If you have any questions or anything on the way, just ask. We'll just start here. So this was my kid's garden, but they don't really take care of it, so I reclaimed it back for this cherry tree, and we planted a cherry tree in there. Um, this is a Nanking cherry that we got from Prairie Wind Nursery down in Norman. Whenever I'm buying anything perennial, I go down there because he really specializes in stuff that's native to Oklahoma or that does well in Oklahoma. That's kind of his thing. So sweet cherries don't do very well in Oklahoma, but these sour ones do. We got one cherry off of it already because we just planted this a few weeks ago, and we got one cherry, and Carrie got to try it, and she said, yeah. So looking forward to getting more. You can see, so I want to show here, this ground around here was some of the original ground that we started with the cardboard and wood chips. And now it is really good stuff. So this was Bermuda. I mean, and now look at that. I can just dig directly into it. So we're starting to do that now. By the end of the summer, Carrie is going to make this look completely different. You see that what she's doing here is going to repeat throughout the entire garden before she's done. Um, so and then that's kind of the strategy was cover everything, get these raised beds established for food now, and then knowing that we're working towards getting perennial stuff and we're going to get more trees and berry bushes. We've already got blackberries over there. I'll show you in a minute, but getting that stuff everywhere else. So then the raised beds become annual production areas, and everything else around is all perennial and stuff that comes back. And this is a food forest by that point. But we were fighting other issues too because there's an easement here so a company can come in here and the electric company can come in here and dig anytime they want without even telling me they're going to do it. So I didn't want to have anything too permanent here. I had issues with that. Um, so that was one reason why we really wanted to have like the smart pots and stuff like that so we can move them. And you can move these. It takes all five of us has Mary got involved? There's four of us. Yeah, me, Carrie, and our two older kids to move these things. They're Yes, they're very heavy, but the smaller ones are easier to move. And really, I think I'll show you on the other side of the yard what we did over there, because what we did over there was kind of an idea of if we're starting over, what would we do? So I'll show you that here in a minute. Okay, so moving this way, this is one of our raised beds that's on legs. And this was an idea we came up with because to solve the whole sun problem, right? So we weren't getting enough sun here. And also we were dealing with a lot of rabbits and stuff like that, and we wanted to have some beds that were easier to harvest from. So we built these that went all the way down the row. The first year and you can see that we have others scattered around the yard, but they used to all be in a row here going down. Um, Now we pretty much only grow greens in the spring here, and then in the summer, all like see a tomato. This is a volunteer tomato. I'm just going to let it go. These are varieties of kale. This is Portuguese kale. It does really good in the summer in the heat. And this is a heat-resistant lettuce, although it's bolting already, so did not live up to its name. And now I'm falling behind with beans. So some of the more heat-resistant beans I'll put here. And then in the middle of summer, you really can't grow much in here. Spiderweb. Hold on, see a little worm. You want a caterpillar? Mary, you want it? She loves these. Mary, you want it? So in the summer we'll do like heat resistant stuff in there, but like really basil will do okay here in the summer, but you're very limited. And also in the winter it gets very cold here, so you can't overwinter kale and spinach in these very well. I think we did pull off some spinach in one of these, but it's kind of difficult to do. We even tried building compost bins underneath of them in the winter, thinking that would heat it from below, but it just didn't work. Over here, we have broccoli that we planted. So this is a mix of broccoli that was planted last fall and broccoli that was planted this spring. The stuff that was planted last fall is the stuff that's mostly bolting to flower level at this point. And this is still edible. So we're continuing to harvest off of this, and we're just, let me talk about broccoli for a minute, because I used to think about broccoli as just like a big head of broccoli. We have one over there. You can see kind of the typical broccoli. I'll show you when we get over there. And our first hailstorm taught me to think differently about broccoli, because our broccoli all got shredded and I knew we weren't going to get a large head. So I was like, well, that was a waste of 60 days. And I was frustrated, and I was venting on the Oklahoma Gardening Forum on Facebook, and someone told me you could eat the leaves, and my mind was blown. I was like, what? So I came out and I took those broken leaves and we chopped them and stir fried them. And as soon as I ate it, I realized this is the inside of an egg roll. It's the exact same taste. And I was like, why don't I just do this? Like, why am I spending I'm taking 90 days to get this giant broccoli, and then I'm hoping it doesn't get bugs or hailstorms and everything else. And like all my prayers are on this one broccoli taking up all this giant space. Like, why am I doing that? Right. So then I started switching to only this broccoli for the most part. So these are broccolis that sprout. They produce a bunch of side shoots. We continue to harvest, and even at this point, they still taste pretty. I mean, you can welcome to harvest and try anything you want as you're walking through here. But we basically just stir fry this with some rice and with the herbs and everything else, and it's pretty much all. I mean, we're eating. There's more than we can eat from this garden right now, and that's what we're eating pretty much for right now. Um, Over here we have, so this is a mix of some kale that was planted in the spring. So we talk about the difference in kind of our strategy on planting broccoli and kale when we plant it. The broccoli that was planted in the fall is quicker to bolt in the spring because it's been through a winter and it's okay with dying. Peace out. Whereas the kale that you plant in the spring has not gone through a winter yet, so it wants to hold on to life, right? And it sticks around longer, and so we have a mix of stuff. So we plant the fall stuff that overwinters and then comes back really early in the spring. And we're getting stuff, from beginning of February sometimes even earlier. Um, and then we also have the stuff that we plant in the spring that lasts longer into the summer and doesn't bolt as soon as it gets hot. So you'll see a mix of stuff. So you'll see some spinach that's bolted and then other stuff that looks fine. And it's probably because just when it was planted. So um, these beds were full of lettuce and they got ripped out a few weeks ago. So we've got beans that are planted here that haven't popped up yet. We've got a baby squash plant right there. I'm not sure what it's going to do next to that pepper because I didn't know I didn't know that was there when I did it. So we'll figure out what I do there. And then over here, I've got that's another squash there. That one should do fine. I'll train it to go that way a little bit. Um, Anywhere you see one of these cages is a pepper. That's how I remind myself where the peppers are. I think I'm going to have to switch out a lot of these peppers because they were planted 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then we got that 49-degree night and I didn't get out here to get them covered in time. And oftentimes, peppers and tomatoes, when they get stunted early in the season like that, they don't really recover until like September. Um, I don't want to mess around with that. Like, why don't I just go to the farmer's market? And typically, what I do with peppers and tomatoes, I start a lot here, but anything that I don't have success with, or if I forget something or whatever, I go to the farmer's market and they're like $2 each. So I'll just buy a whole flat of them and then bring them back and just kind of pop them around everywhere. So I'm gonna do that again next time I can get down there. I go to usually the Norman Farmers Market or the Oklahoma City one. I haven't made it down to the Moore one yet, but I want to check that one out. But I can always count on peppers being at those two. Feel free to kind of walk through here too if y'all want to get closer to see. You don't have to stay around the outside. And it might be kind of hard to see some of the stuff I'm going to show over here. We've got peas along these trellises here. So I'll talk about these trellises and why we have these and and why they are where they are. So the first year that we started growing food, we had a lot of issues in the summer with stuff not doing well in the heat and bolting and just having issues. And the cat's trying to get this butterfly. She's gonna get one. Um, so we started with the idea that what if we just create some shade on the side of the garden in the afternoon so that you get shade in the afternoon. So we started just with these posts and then burlap that I clipped to it. And then about halfway through the summer, I was kind of sitting out here. I come out here in the morning a lot and just kind of sit there before everything gets really loud and all the kids wake up. And I was kind of sit there and just enjoy peace. And I was looking at this one day and I was like, I'm wasting sunlight. Like the whole point of gardening is to capture sunlight, turn it into food. And I'm blocking all this sun. Why don't I grow food up there that captures the sun? So that was when I took down those burlaps and started growing peas, beans, cucumbers, things like that that capture the sunlight and create shade. And the cool thing about that is that the plants that are in this garden need the full sun until pretty much now, like from now until August. But you'll see now I've got coverage. In the spring, there wasn't coverage. Well, I didn't need the coverage. So you get it right when you need it. It's nice in that way. Still trying to figure out how to time it because these peas are going to die. And then the beans that I'm going to put down below aren't going to be back up in time, so I'll be for a few weeks. But um, and then I also want to mention that you do want to rotate. You don't want to do beans back to back time after time, or you'll get some issues with diseases build up. So I switch back and forth between. I rotate between beans, winter squash that vine, Malabar spinach, loofah. I think I'm gonna have a lot more fingers because I'm gonna keep naming. But you get the idea. All the vining stuff, um, and then these arches we've switched to using a lot more too. You'll see on the other side of the yard. I love these things. Carrie is a sucker for arches. So anytime I put an arch anywhere, she smiles really big. So that's why there are arches everywhere because it's just always an easy way to make her happy. So, and these are really cheap. These are like 18 bucks at Tractor Supply for these. And then these T-posts I get for free because when everyone gets trees installed in their house, they take the posts out, put them on the side of the yard. And I'm always looking for big trash day for T-posts and for kiddie pools. Every big trash day, I'm scavenging for that stuff. So that's what I use to build this stuff. And we're growing peas up here now, but we've got beans that are down here. These are the yard-long beans. Cucumbers that I planted here. These are morning glories. I let some of the morning glories live and keep going. And I'm not sure what I'm doing over there yet. I might just see if those end up being pretty. I'll just let Carrie tell me what to do on that side. Because it's hard to get stuff grow up against the fence. Okay, over here we have chives. These are garlic chives. One little tip that kind of I think is cool at least. If you can't tell the difference between garlic chives and onion chives, garlic chives have flat leaves and onion chives have round leaves. So that's an easy way to tell. Um, Again, more broccoli. Another thing I want to mention, these little seed pods are edible and are super nutritious. This has the highest concentration of all of the, can't remember the chemical names, all the good stuff that you see in blog posts about broccoli every other week is highest concentrated in these. But it's hard to grow these for mass production, so they're not in our everyday diet. And that's why, you've got to step out of the mindset of like, what do we eat from the grocery store? Well, that grocery store was built based on what can we grow a lot and get rid of in a hurry. And, you got to rethink that. So things like this become really powerful, valuable things for us to have in our garden because we get a lot of nutrition out of them. We've got thyme here. You'll see we have herbs scattered all throughout the garden. That's largely due to the fact that they really help with pest prevention. But also, we use them a lot in cooking. And let me mention why they help with pest prevention for a second. Pests find what they're looking for through their sense of smell. So that butterfly smells the broccoli, lands on it, lays its eggs. Whenever you have a mix of herbs everywhere, it makes it harder for the pest to find what they're looking for. So whenever my tomatoes get grown up, they'll have basil that's surrounding them that makes it harder for the pest to find those tomatoes. Um, Over here we have strawberries. We originally started with just one container of strawberries, and then they did really well, and then they started taking over this one, so I just let them take over. And I bought some extras. I brought in some reinforcements to help them take over. And then I threw some seeds in here too for spinach and Swiss chard because the spinach especially appreciates the shade it gets from the strawberries as they get bigger. Oh, it's starting to bolt though. We're pretty much losing our spinach. Um, Swiss chard. The first year we grew it, we only grew it because it looked cool, and then it's kind of sat there. We didn't really use it much. And then once we discovered, hey, don't go in there. Once we discovered that you could use them as tortilla replacements, that really opened the door for us to use these all the time. So basically, we just take one of these leaves and then use it as a replacement for a tortilla. Swiss chard can be overpowering, so it helps spread the taste over everything because it's the whole tortilla, if you will. And it's just one of the prettiest things to have in the garden, especially the red ones. I've got one here you can see, and there's more scattered around. This is Dinosaur Kale. It's one of the sweeter kale varieties. So each variety of kale tastes dramatically different. So that's one thing when I first started gardening I didn't fully appreciate was how different all the varieties are, especially with spinach. We've got I don't even know how many varieties of spinach we have anymore because I collect it. Anytime we go anywhere and there's a new one, I grab it. So we have them everywhere, and each variety has its own unique flavor or unique quality. So and that pretty much applies to everything that we grow out here. There's not very many things that we're not growing multiple varieties of, I think beans and peas are the few things that there's a tried and true variety that would just grow and it just works. But for the most part, we're trying a bunch of different stuff. We're trying to incorporate in as many different colors as we can. And that's our goal out here. That's why we've got red kale, we've got red lettuce, we've got all different varieties and different colors of stuff out here. Um, okay, over this way, we've got these smart pots have a mix of beans and then kale, just more kale everywhere, curly kale, dinosaur kale. These beans are starting to produce. One thing that kind of blew my mind about beans the first time that I, grew them was a realization that dried beans are just old green beans, just the insides of old green beans, basically, is a simple way to put it. And that blew my mind. So the nice thing about that is beans are really versatile. You can pick them. I mean, you could pick this one right here. It's a little young. There's ant mounds around, by the way, so watch your feet. I just stepped in one. Um, so this one's a little young to pick, but pretty much from like 2 days on from there, you can pick it, or you can wait until it's hold on, or you can wait until they're done and they completely dry, and then you harvest the beans from within. So um, over this in this bed, these onions are going to flower. This wasp is pretty much harmless. I've pet them and they don't care. Um, One interesting thing I've learned about wasps, the solitary ones like him, um, don't want to sting you because he knows I'm probably going to kill him if he does, and then his species could end because he's solitary. But the wasps that live with a bunch of other wasps, they don't care. They're willing to die in a hurry. So, but we don't have any of those here. We just have the solitary ones, and they help a lot because they hunt caterpillars. So I've seen them go through these cabbage leaves, and literally they kind of pull the leaf back and go in there, get a caterpillar, and drag it out, and they take it to their young. So I love having those things around. Um, and here we've got a mix of red cabbage, kale, broccoli, more spinach. See the spinach is starting to bolt here in the middle when it produces that. The seeds, it's just getting too hot for it. The stuff that gets more shade is doing a little better, but it's pretty much the end of spinach season. So what we'll do now is we'll eat more of the kale and more of just more stir-fried greens like the broccoli, the collard greens, um, just all those different brassicas you see around here. We'll start pulling more leaves off of those. For fresh greens, there are some varieties of lettuce that do well in the summer, but I'm not a big lettuce fan. I used to be before I started gardening. I was like the only vegetable I liked was like a salad with lettuce. And then once I started gardening and I tasted things like spinach and kale, I was like, that pretty much got rid of lettuce for me. So, um, again, just more of the same through here. Cabbage, beans, broccoli. Back here, there's a bunch of beans. I think these are lima beans, maybe. So we had a pretty big wind come through last night. I actually had the kids get in the shelter for a few minutes. Um, but lima beans back there, peas that were up on that trellis that got blown over. Um, Carrie planted a bunch of zinnias last year, and now they're self-seeding. So we're mixing more of that stuff around. Cilantro is scattered everywhere too. I just throw cilantro seeds everywhere and just try and get as much as I can before it bolts. It's starting to bolt now. You can see that. I'm going to let a lot of it actually bolt and go to seed and then let those seeds drop. So they'll just continue to self-sow. And those seeds are also really good. Coriander is the name of cilantro seeds. And we use them in a lot of wraps too because it adds a little crunch and just adds some nice flavor. We've got more peppers scattered around, more Swiss chard. These are, I believe it's squash. That looks like a zucchini, and I think that one is a cucumber. A volunteer that came up from last year. This is one of the giant broccoli heads I mentioned. So this is the broccoli that you'd be used to from the grocery store. Um, this is a fast variety, so it didn't take 90 days to create that. I think that was like a 70-day. But still, I mean, once you harvest that main head, it will start putting out side shoots. You'll get more. But these start producing at like 45, 50 days. And we just harvest the whole thing, like down to the base, and then just chop it all up, and it just keeps producing. We've been harvesting off of that since February. Um, this is oregano, all along back here. We have a bunch of different types of oregano: Greek oregano, Italian oregano, sweet marjoram, just all different flavors. When we first started gardening, we were really excited when we started getting a bunch of food out, and then like the excitement wore off after like 2 weeks, and it was just like, okay, like this squash tastes the same every single day. It was boring. And then that's when we really started um, using more of these to make it taste better. So we throw a handful of that oregano or thyme or whatever, and it makes things taste completely different day to day and keeps it interesting. And they have a ton of health benefits. I mean, oregano and rosemary are some of the best things you can eat. Pound for pound, they have some of the most nutrition for you. Over here, we have a lot of collard greens. So let me talk about kind of how we plant this kind of stuff. So collard greens need a lot of space, but the way that we grow it is we throw a lot of seeds and then we just kind of see what does best as they come up. So we've had a lot of issues with worms. I have not put any spray down. Sometimes I don't do any pesticide, but I do the BTK. It's a naturally occurring soil bacteria that they bottle up and you can spray it in your plants. And when caterpillars eat it, it kills them. But it's a bacteria that kills them. And it's not a bacteria that affects humans. Um, I haven't used it this year just because I knew we were going to have so much that I didn't care if there were holes in the leaves. And Mary loves having all the butterflies everywhere, so I don't really care. If you don't want to have the holes in your leaves and stuff, then you can put that on there and it'll keep them away. But the plant grows right through it, and it lets me see what's the healthiest plant because as I start to thin this down, eventually this will be just one collard green plant in here. Most of these go to the rabbits. Those rabbits are in rabbit heaven because they get so much food from out of here because we plant just extras and then let natural selection show us what the best seeds are. Because if you just plant one seed in there, it could be a dud. You have no idea. So seeds are cheap. Why not just plant the whole packet there? It's $2 per packet, right? So I just plant a bunch and then I let natural selection tell me which one's the best one to keep, and the rest go to the rabbits. These are potatoes, and these smart pots here, pretty much all of our potatoes are grown in a smart pot, either this one or a larger one, because it makes it really easy to harvest. We can just dump this into a barrel, and the kids pretend it's Easter, and they just hunt through, and they love it. We've got all different varieties. We've got purple ones, red ones. We're obsessive about everything, but really with potatoes, we're always trying to find as many varieties as we can. This is our herb area over here, so we have one of every herb we can fit in here for the most part. We've got curry, parsley. This is cilantro. This is a romaine lettuce that does well in the heat that we've got going. This is salad burnet. Tastes like cucumber. It's really nice to add into wraps and stuff. This is a basil here. This is an oregano, a thyme. This is chamomile. This is really just a smell. So this is part like just it's de-stressing to come over here. Or literally, I put my face in it. I'm not gonna do it right now in front of y'all, but I do that. I come over here and like stuff my face in it, and it's super calming. And I bear hug that sage plant. It gets really big. And I bear hug it, and I work from home a lot, so these are my coworkers. um, we've got more herbs over here too, just a mix of different stuff. That's something else we collect. Anytime I see a new herb, we have to get it. This is our rainwater collection here. So let me talk briefly about this and why we built it. So um, the idea behind this was plants respond better to water that is the same temperature as the plant. So whenever you water from the hose, most of the time it's fine. So healthy plants are fine, they'll recover. But if it's a sick plant, if it's a baby plant, any of these cases, then you want to have water that's the same water, same temperature as the plant. So originally I was doing that by filling up buckets, and literally we had like 100 buckets lined up out here, and like I was filling them up and then letting the sun like warm it, and it was just like and there were mosquitoes everywhere. It was chaos. So that was what led to the idea of why don't we just collect a bunch of rainwater and then it'll be the same. And then also rainwater, if there's lightning near the area of the time it was raining, then nitrogen can be infused into the rain. So it can be charged with nitrogen. And plus, there's just a bunch of other stuff that I don't even know if we fully understand about rainwater that makes it work better. You can just see it in the plants, that plants respond better to rainwater than they do to water out of the tap. So we don't use this for all of our watering, but I like having a reservoir to use for, we have watering cans normally everywhere that we use whenever we do fish fertilizer. We use, or if we do like the BT, if we do that, or if it's just we're watering from a can, because sometimes it's nice just to take watering cans, and that's kind of my workout. You just go out there and it's like water with watering cans. I don't know, it's nice. It's my way to connect to nature. Um, so it's nice to have that for that. And also we had a period a few years ago where randomly there was a problem and we were out of water for a couple of days. And it was kind of a wake up call of, you know what, like I would like to have, I don't want to be completely dependent. I'm not like a super prepper guy, but I want to be able to have water here for my garden if there's a big tornado and there's no, whatever, right? Like I just want to be prepared. So I found, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and I've got a blog post that talks all about building this that links to those videos too. And I've got a video that shows how we built this, but these were, like 50 or 60 bucks on Craigslist each. They're really cheap. They're called IBC totes. Just search for that on Craigslist or Facebook and you can find them. The hardware to hook it up, it's not hooked up right now, but the hardware to hook it up was, less than 100 bucks, I think, for all of it. Some of these fittings I had to get on Amazon and stuff, but this whole system here, it cracked in the winter because I didn't drain it properly. But the idea behind it is that the water fills into here first, and then the first 30 gallons is the dirtiest water. And then once this fills, there's a bottle that floats in here that comes in here and seals this top. So then all the water diverts over. So you kind of flush out the dirty water first, and then you got fresh water. So that's the idea behind that. What I do now is I just fill these up with water from the tap most of the time, and then they're full, and then I just use them until they're. That's what I've been doing since that cracked on me. So we have another rainwater collection on this side. It's hooked to the shed. It's a smaller one. It's just a 55-gallon barrel. So that's a small and easier setup to do. It's flooded over here, so I'm not going to take you over there, but I'll tell you kind of the idea behind this area. When we started our garden, everything was out here. And, I mentioned like the shade things we built and all that kind of stuff. But really what we realized was that this was a valuable space to have in the summer because it gets shaded in the afternoon. And it was 30 degrees cooler here than it was over there. So we started planting lettuce and spinach. See, the spinach here looks really good because it gets shade in the afternoon. So we started planting that stuff over here, stuff that really appreciates the shade in the summer. This is a lemon balm here. Again, just a mix of herbs everywhere. These are different basils in this smart potter on this perimeter. These are all blackberries. We started with 3 blackberry bushes, and they just keep taking over, and we're going to let them. So we'll just let them go that way. So eventually, I think just that whole junk area anyway is going to be just blackberries. So, and we'll just keep putting trellises over there that they can climb like we did here, just T-posts. And then these are hardware remesh panels that we get at Home Depot for like $8. It's one of the cheapest ways to make trellises like this. See these blackberries. The first year you don't get really anything, but then you don't get anything the first year. But then the second year you start getting more, and third year they really get a lot. They're native to Oklahoma, so if you want to grow any type of fruit, it's the easiest one to start with are blackberries in Oklahoma, at least. Yeah, we do. Yeah, but last year was our first one to have canes, so this will be our first year to actually cut back canes. Over here, this long bed was originally compost bins, and this wood that we used to make the bed came from the compost bins. I was making my own compost from the Norman compost facilities. I got wood chips from them, and then I got cottonseed husks, and I got rabbit manure, and I got just a bunch of different ingredients. But one of the ingredients I got was horse manure. And I ended up learning that horses often graze on fields that are sprayed with herbicide that goes right through them, lasts in their manure. Long story short, I wrecked all my tomatoes with my compost from the horse manure. And that was when I stopped bringing in outside animal manure to make compost. And this bed turned into a green manure factory, if you will. So this is pretty much all comfrey at this point that either goes into the compost or goes to the rabbits, and then they make manure from it. Comfrey I specifically chose because out of all plants, it sends its roots way down, like 20 or 30 feet, where other plants can't get to, and it's able to pull up all those nutrients that have been lost to time, and it stores them in their leaves, and then you take that and put it in your compost. So they're one of the most efficient, and they just are. They grow. They're perennial. They come back every year. They're voracious. They grow like crazy. So the goal was we wanted a bunch of green material to put in the compost, and that's what that does for us. So pretty much this whole bed, we'll do radishes before this really takes over early, just for the rabbits. It's all rabbit food basically, and then our rabbits are around the corner over here. We've got 3 of them now, the giant rabbits. They're not all giants yet, but they'll get there. And then those are our compost bins back there, where again it's mostly just made from. I still get the wood chips from Norman Compost. I'm sure you saw my truck out front. That's completely safe. I don't worry about getting wood chips from there because I've seen them literally put a tree through the chipper. I saw it was a tree. I saw the dude bring the tree in like right before. I understand. There's no like the herbicide is not being sprayed on the trees. Right? I'm not worried about that process. What I am worried about is the compost that's made from places like that, because the compost is made from yard waste, from golf courses, and from anybody that in Norman that wants to bring their yard waste there, they can. So you have no idea what's going into that compost. So I've used it in areas that like maybe if it was like a big wildflower area, okay, sure, and if I'm not going to grow food in there for a few years, then I would try it. But other than that, I don't really use it. I buy my compost from Middick Materials or from Markham's Nursery. I need to try Murphy's again. I haven't tried them in a while, but I just try and buy it in bulk is the point. I take my truck, they loaded it up for like 50 or 60 bucks. That's way cheaper than going to any of those stores and buying those bags of compost. It isn't even compost anymore. It's been in a bag for like a year. There's no life in that bag. It used to be compost, but you're defeating the point by getting that stuff. Um, okay, over on that side, I'm not gonna. I think y'all saw when y'all walked in over on the right. There was a bunch of mint there. Um, that mint is a mix of different types of mints. So basically, we just threw a bunch of different types of mint in there. They're all invasive. We're letting them battle. We don't care. We throw pretty much the only way we use it is in drinks anyway. We put it in like a big container with water and then let it. We should have made that today. Huh. Oops. Darn. Yeah. It's just now getting hot enough to think about doing that. That's usually only when it's hot. Okay, so that's this side of the yard. Well, it's really wet over there. Like it's really wet and yeah. You can go grab a bunny if you want. I know you want to get one anyway. She usually always has one with her when she's out here. All right, so let's go to this side of the yard. And we started this side of the yard with the idea of if we were starting over, what would we do? Okay, so pretty much everything over here is at envisioned, and this is kind of what we think is practical for other people to do. Um, when we first started doing like um, from seed to spoon stuff, a lot of people said like, yeah, like I love what you've done, but I could never. That's too much. So this is our answer to that, our attempt at it. So you'll see everything we have over here is in a smart pot, and mostly in these small smart pots, and I'll show you why here in a second. But we've really adopted the idea of instead of having large beds, having small smart pots, and then having one, sometimes two things in that smart pot. So here is oregano, chives, and a mint. This is my idea of protecting the tree too. We'll see if it works, right? Because then the rats can't get to the base, and not rats, mice. We have moles in that field that come over. Um, oh, I guess I should have picked that up. Sorry. Hazard, hazard. Okay. There's like staples everywhere. Okay. So let's come over this way. This is our porch area, and we've got a lot of different stuff over here. This is mostly herbs and stuff that we want to get to in a hurry when we're cooking. So we use a lot of chives. We got a lot of that. We'll have peppers over here. Once we start getting jalapenos, I'll move those over here so we can rip those off in a hurry. Um, over on this side, we've got. So this is if I were starting over. This is what I would do. Or if I were starting out, even. I'll wait till everyone can get over here. This is the setup, I think, in my mind, the ideal setup for growing food because so these are the long beds, the smart pot long beds. These are 12 foot long. They run all the way down. And then on the other sides, I've got just smaller ones set up. You can do a long bed or a small ones. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is you're able to use all of this um, space to work together. So we've got kiwi that's growing here that eventually take over this whole thing. But until then, we've got stuff growing here that needs full sun now, but once this kiwi takes over, it won't mind having the shade. And then on this side, we've got stuff that likes having sun until the afternoon. And on this side, we've got stuff that doesn't mind the afternoon sun. So in this one setup, you can grow pretty much everything in one space without having to rely on having existing structure or anything like that. You get shade areas, you get sun areas, you can grow peas up these. Like this is actually on this side. We've got a row of beans. Mary, you're gonna pop your pool. Mary. Um, on this side, these are all beans. The ones in front are bush beans, and then these are pole beans. So the pole beans are going to come up the trellis. On this side, we've got squash that again we're going to use the trellis for it. We'll have peppers and basil over here. And then one thing that's really nice is with these kiddie pools. Obviously we don't need it this week, but here in like 3 or 4 weeks, I'm sure it's going to be like 100 degrees and no rain for like 2 months. And these make it really nice. These kiddie pools. So we've got them lined up here. They're on sale right now at Aldi. How much? $7 you said, Gary? Yeah. Um, so we'll drill holes in these about 2 inches up. We've already got holes in these over there. I need to do these. And then in the summer, like before we leave for the day or whatever, we can just put it inside there, and then it just keeps watered and it absorbs the water from below. Now you don't want to fill the whole thing up. These plants do not want to sit in water all the time. That's bad for them. They're like humans, they need water, but not all the time. And you drown, right? So it's really best for them to drink all the water in a day, and then maybe the next day fill it up or something, or a couple of days. And that's part of it too. Is they need to be able to dry out. They need to go through a cycle of being fully saturated and then getting dry, but not so dry that they look wilty. And you'll learn that range. But as soon as they look wilty, fully saturate them again. And then you'll learn how far you can push it. And it's not the end of the world if they get wilty. It's fine. Some sweating. So, but that's your sign of when you should water again. I don't water until they look wilty, after they've been fully watered. So um, we are in the process of creating more of these, and we've got smart pots to give out to everyone that came today of these size, so y'all can try them. And we're going to be doing a lot more of these, enough to fill all of these at least. So that's our strategy, is basically fill the whole rest of these yard on this side with these smaller smart pots, and then put one of each plant in there. We need product photos too, so that's part of like we need like a picture of a cucumber in a smart pot, like put in our app. So we're just gonna put one in each and just set it all up over here. It'll be a fun project anyway. So we're really gonna another thing we're doing too is we're really trying to figure out what are the limits of how small of a smart pot you can go. So we've got peppers that are in 3 gallon, we've got 5 gallon, we've got 7 gallon, 15 gallon. I've got every different size going of peppers and tomatoes because I want to see how small we can go on them. Because if we can just go 3 gallon, well, obviously we can grow a lot more. Especially if we're doing this whole kiddie pool method of keeping them watered. Over on this side, we've got a lot more potatoes, like a potato row, if you will, over there. We've got fruit trees here. You can see some apples on that one. That's a pear. That's an apple that doesn't have any. I think it's a pear over there. These raised beds over here on legs get shade in the afternoon. So we had some greens there. I put a couple squash in there now because they'll get enough sun. Beans in the back one. And then along this side over here, we've got just more potatoes and peppers and just a mix of different stuff. Like, again, we like to just collect different stuff. So, like, St. John's wort is like a random herb that I saw at a nursery. I was like, sure, I'll try it. So we just got a lot of random stuff like that around. Um, any questions? I've been talking for a long time. Any questions or anything like that? Answer it all? Cool.
How did you figure out like where was sunny and where was like full? You know, like I don't know. Do you just have to watch for one day?
I took a picture. So I had one day that I set a reminder to go out and take a picture every hour. And I just went out and I took a picture every hour.
And you just write down like how many hours of sun it got and kind of thing.
Well, once I saw the pictures, I just knew, and it like became knowledge that you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing happened to you. Then you'll just understand your property, and you'll just know where everything is.
Oh, okay.
There is a
Because I know
device
people
you can
will be
buy
like, oh
too.
look, it's hit this on the north side, and I'm like, I don't even know which way is north and south. Like I don't know. It's just
Hey, the first year was the same way. I didn't even know where the sun came up or where it went. I had no idea.
the sun sets behind us.
I'm happy to come help you. You're right around the corner. So
I got a
okay.
question. Where'd you get the big bag of vermiculite?
We got that at Markham's Nursery this morning, but it was expensive. It was like $37. So normally I get it from TLC at 32. Last time I was at OK Organics, I saw it even cheaper there, and I saw that the perlite was 20. And I don't care if it's perlite. I'll go back and forth. So, and I've seen it on Amazon cheap too. So that's the first time I ever bought that brand. It looks nice. It looks different than the other one. I scored a really good deal a while back. I got like 10 bags of vermiculite for like $10 a bag, basically. And so I've just been using that, but I just ran out. So I'm like, oh no, I can start paying $30 bags of vermiculite again.
And what is it for?
Oh, let's talk about that. Yes, I'm glad I mentioned that. So the soil mix, that's the most important thing. I can't believe I didn't talk about that. So the soil that we put inside of the raised beds and in the smart pots, oops. We always do pretty much the same mix of. Can y'all fit over here? I've got like all the. We've been making it over here, so I can show you. I think we can all fit over here without it being too bad. So we take a bucket full of peat moss. We'll also use coconut coir. They're interchangeable. You can use either one. A bucket full of vermiculite. And vermiculite, so this is and feel free to take some if you want to look at it. It's a rock. It's mined out of the ground, and it's heated up until it explodes, and it makes these little things here. And what this does is it's like popcorn. It absorbs water, and then you can feel it. It's like spongy, right? It absorbs water, and then it releases it slowly. So absorbs slowly, releases slowly. So it helps regulate water, basically. Now, the square foot gardening mix calls for 1/3 of this, 1/3 of this peat moss, and then 1/3 of compost. Vermiculite is expensive, so I wouldn't have been able to do 1/3 of vermiculite on all of our beds. I couldn't have afforded it. So we started backing down to like 15% vermiculite, and then mixing in just more peat moss and a little more compost. Or we did some sand in one bed and it worked out. But you got to be careful because sand and clay makes hard. What's it called? It's not good. It makes a hard structure. So yeah. So you got to be careful. Too much sand. Yeah. Um, so, but a little bit of sand is okay and it helps the drainage. So basically, the idea is we get a bucket of each, and then we dump it into here, and then we mix it up, um, and then we end up with that. And then so we use this bed right now as kind of our filling bed because we're still filling a bunch of smaller smart pots. And then when we're done, we'll just fill this one up and plant it. But it makes it easy to fill the smaller ones because we're just filling this one and then sourcing from that. So we have done so many loads of this soil mix the past few months. Filling these, oh my gosh, it took so much. But I think this is hopefully our last bag of vermiculite, and we are almost done because we have this one left and then a bunch of small ones. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it. We have elderberry here, and then back here in the corner we've got another blackberry. We're gonna keep planting more stuff through here. This will all be. Carrie finally gave me permission to like basically take over the whole yard. It's been a slow. I mean, you like everything now. Yeah, it's been a slow process, but I knew eventually I could take over the whole yard. And then I just like she started putting flowers everywhere, so just so it's a lot of fun. I mean, this is what we do for our date nights, our date mornings. I mean, our weekends. This is all we do.
I've got one other question. I
Yeah.
noticed you have a lot of these solar sensors
Yeah.
around the yard.
They're lights,
Just
motion activated lights.
okay.
Yeah, just so I can walk through here and all the lights come on automatically.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You don't want to, now I want to mention, um, you don't necessarily want to have lights that are always on because it attracts bugs to your plants. So you don't want to have them like come like solar lights come on, stay on. And I'm not sure how these are going to do. I think these are dim enough that they're not going to draw. I don't really be paying attention to that. I may just have these stay on for like an hour or two or something like that.
When you've got a smart pot, something that's died like this one, do you reuse the mix that's in it, or do
Yeah.
you heat it to kill anything that might have killed
No, the cold killed this. This was stevia, and stevia is super temperate, so it didn't like that 49-degree day. So for this situation, but if it was a disease situation or something, then yeah, I would. A lot of times, what I'll do is like at the end of the season, I'll kind of rotate. I'll dump the soil from all the smart pots kind of into a big tub, and then put in a bunch of like fresh compost and fresh worm castings, and maybe a little bit of organic fertilizer if I'm going to do that, and then kind of rebuild the smart pots out from that mix. So that's typically what I'll do with it. But these big ones just stay the same, and they never get emptied. And then in the winter, I grow spinach and kale in them, and they overwinter. Or I'll do some sort of other cover crop that'll overwinter. We haven't yet. No, we have. We've covered these smaller ones, the domes ago. We've done those in the winter. But spinach and kale does okay without it. It just doesn't start as earlier in the year. And really, the only things that we could push or like would be like some of the root crops maybe. Other than that, I have to have like a high tunnel to be able to push tomatoes or peppers or anything like that. Um, so we'd like to get some land one day, and then we'll have a high tunnel and do all that kind of stuff. But we have an indoor grow area too in my office where I've got a bunch of grow lights set up where we pull stuff into, and we start a lot of our seeds in there too. And then I think we're gonna be turning one of our rooms basically into like a plant room in the winter. So we're selling my big desk and taking over my plants. And then our back porch, like our newest project, is filling our back porch in our house with house plants because I went through a depression again in the winter because not having plants around and not being outside, being able to do all this stuff, right? So we bought a bunch of house plants, and so now this winter I'll be surrounded by all my house plants, and we're excited to have that. What are you doing? Normally I don't see you. Now I remember there was a camera on me. Dang it. Yeah, you had me all forgetting it, and now I remember. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for coming out. I really appreciate it. We've got seeds over there. But you can take whatever you want. We've got a smart pot. Everyone gets a smart pot. And feel free to harvest if you'd like to take some mint or try some of the broccoli or Yeah, yeah. There's a lot. Yes, please harvest the peas because they will stop producing if we don't harvest and we can't keep up. And we have a huge bag, so please take them. Please eat some. Thank you. That was last year. Thanks for coming, Crystal. I'm glad you brought your camera. I was gonna message you and ask you to bring it. I just knew you would.